Please go ahead, sir. Please start, sir. You can
Uh,
start.
uh, Good evening, all participants. I'm Prakash Kamble. Currently, I'm working in DGTR, that is Director General Trade Remedies, as a Deputy Director. And today's our topic is trade measures, policy insight, and support mechanism. So, can you see my presentations?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, to begin with our topic, uh, first, we need to understand why the trade measures are required. In the global scenario, there are various aspects where the many countries don't operate. Uh, Many countries doesn't operate, uh, doesn't do the international trade in a very fair manner. So to remove that unfair trade practices, WTO provides for different trade remedial measures. These trade remedial measures are mainly anti-dumping measures, countervailing duties, and in terms of the safeguard measures. So in my presentation, I'll be focusing on the anti-dumping duties. Since I'm working on, I have experience, I'm working at the anti-dumping investigations. So I'm more familiar with the anti-dumping investigation and I can have the detailed view of that. And regarding countervailing duties and subsidy measures, we can have the brief introduction about the topic. Then we can have the general understanding about that. And in the later part of the presentation, I would like to deal with the trade defense mechanism that India have against in those cases which are against the India. Like we start investigation, we start investigation against the exports from other countries. Likewise, many other countries have the similar measures and similar practice like anti-dumping investigation, countervailing investigation, safeguard measures investigation against Indian export, and how the Indian government and in particular my department help and guide exporters and other stakeholders to defend India's export in the foreign market. So we'll begin with the anti-dumping duty. Now, first of all, we need to understand what is dumping. Dumping Dumping per se, though it sounds in a negative connotation, but dumping per se is not a bad word or it is not a bad practice. When you look at from the perspective of Indian market or any market, the products which are coming at the dump prices may be helpful for the economy, local economy. So dumping, as long as it is not causing any injury to the domestic market, is good for the economy. Another aspect about dumping, it is very exporter or business oriented decision, which is mainly for which is limited to the particular business or particular exporters. So so you cannot stretch the anti-dumping duty and related measures to all other exporters which are not actually dumping or actually not selling their product below the normal price. So we'll deal about the normal price and what is the dumping and how it is calculated in the coming slides. Now, when you think about the anti-dumping duty and anti-dumping investigation, there are three essential factors which need to be taken into account. First, any investigation authority or any investigation body has to establish receives an application from the domestic industry which is alleging that there is a dumping of particular product which he is producing. Now, there are three important factors. There are three essential elements that need to be linked and must be there in the application of the domestic industry. First, they should show that there is a dumping, and this dumping is causing injury to their domestic industry or to their manufacturing sector, and thus not able to capture the domestic market per se. And they need to establish that there is a link between the dumping and the injury. The injury that the domestic industry is causing is particularly and specifically because of the dumping of particular exporter in the market. Now, when we receive an application, it is application has to be in the form and nature as prescribed under the custom tariff identification assessment collection anti-dumping on dumped article and determination of duty rules 1995. It has been amended recently. It has also been in the current budget. It has also been amended, and there are small modification has been done in the rules. Now these rules are generally referred as the anti-dumping rules or AD rules. Now who can file the application? This anti-dumping duty, investigation for the anti-dumping duty can be filed by the domestic industry or the association on behalf of the domestic industry, or authority can suo motu initiate any such investigation if they find or they have such kind of evidences that particular item is being dumped in the market and causing the injury. Now, as we can see, the legal provision, the legal provision is there in the anti-dumping rule, Rule 5. It says that the application, as you can read, there are three essential factors mentioned in the rule itself, which says that there should be the applicant shall be supported by the evidence of dumping injury wherever applicable, and where applicable a causal link between the dumped imports and alleged injury. So in the application itself, the domestic industry has to provide the three essential elements and their linkage and the evidence regarding that. Mere allegation that particular item is being dumped is not sufficient. The allegation should be supported by the sufficient evidence. Evidence generally involves the import data, the other economic factors, parameters of the domestic industry. So as I explained earlier, so application mainly reflects the three aspects: dumping, injury, and causal link. Now the next step that is there is the examination and the examination of the degree of support. So when we think about the domestic industry, now it is very essential to define the domestic industry. Now suppose there are multiple producers of a particular product, and not all the producers are facing the injury. Maybe one or two producers from the industry are facing the injury. So many at times you can see that many producers want to use the anti-dumping measures as a tool for their protection of their own business. So in order to avoid that, in order to have the largest perspective, and so there are particular conditions which defines the domestic industry. So in application itself, they have to establish that they have the sufficient support to file the application, so that they can claim that the application is filed on behalf of the domestic industry. Now, authority, that is DGTR, in this case, can also initiate an anti-dumping investigation on suo motu. Generally, applicant, a domestic industry which is causing injury, generally they submit the application with providing all the evidences of the dumping, injury, and the causal link. But if authority fails, or authority gets an evidence that a particular item is getting imported in India, and because of that imported item, the domestic industry is getting injured. Now, particular in many cases where the domestic industry is fragmented, there are no major association, or uh, there is no association which can represent the domestic industry. In such case, if authority has the evidence and get the information which can be verifiable, which is from the authentic sources, reliable sources, the authority itself can undertake a study wherein they can see that the uh, the product which is getting exported is at dump price and is causing to a particular sector injury to the particular sector. In that case, authority can initiate without having any application regarding anti-dumping duty from any specific industry. But once such case is initiated, the procedure has to be followed same as the normal anti-dumping investigation application. That means the interested industries, they have to produce their data, have to produce their economic parameters wherein they can show, they can reflect that there is an injury because of the dump imports. And if the domestic industry or the interested parties are failed to provide or cannot establish that there is an injury, such investigations can be terminated. Now, as you can see, since the inception of the authority, that is earlier it was known as a DGAD, now it is a DGTR. There are very few investigations which were initiated on suo motu by the authority. The particular reason for that is many such industries which are fragmented and have very small base, they are not able to share their data, or not very much willing to share their data with the authority or any other agency, or they face many problems because the data are not kept in a manner which is required as satisfying the criteria set in the rules and the WTO agreement. So the process for them, it becomes very cumbersome, and generally such groups or such small industry, mainly MSME, doesn't come forward doesn't come forward to share their data, even if the authority wants to start so motu investigations. But in last so there are only few 2 to 3 cases wherein such investigation were initiated by authority. There has been participation and anti-dumping duty was imposed in that investigations. Now, as was discussed about the standing of the domestic industry, or what defines the domestic industries. As per the AD rule 2B, domestic industry means the domestic producer as a whole aggregated in the manufacture of the like article and any activity connected therewith, or those whose collective output of the said article constitutes a major proportion of the total domestic production of that article, except when such producers are related to the exporters or importers of the alleged dumped article, or are themselves importers. Therefore, in such case, the domestic industry may be considered as a referring to the rest of the producer. So, as I highlighted some of the points in this definition, that the domestic industry means the domestic producers. Domestic industry does not represent the traders or the stockist. They have to have the manufacturing capacity and the facility, and they must be manufacturers. Second part is they must be there must be commercial sale of their product in the domestic market, wherein they can claim injury to their production. Regarding the like article, we can discuss it further in details. Now, the domestic industry must, the applicant, which constitutes the domestic industry, must constitute a major proportion of the total domestic production. The major proportion has been not clearly defined anywhere. How much, what constitutes the major proportion, what percentage should constitute the major proportion. So, in order to arrive at that point, there are different aspects uh, which defines the major proportions, whereby the domestic industry becomes eligible for the application. As I explained, they should be manufactured of the like articles. They constitute the major proportion. Major proportion, of course, they must be representative enough. The uh, applicant should not be constitute a very small portion and taking care of very few producers. The applicant must have the degree support, must have the support from other producer of the same like articles. It is because the degree of support need to see in the other angle, such as the what is the opposition to the applicant and the application filed by it. Because at many times, some of the producers with the may not agree with the applicant that particular product is causing injury to them, or uh, may have product linked to the imported product, which is used by them or in the industry as a raw material. So they may not be willing to join the investigation or to investigation to be started, so that their whole supply chain get disturbed. So the degree of support to the applicant is necessary. That examination is must there. In general, it is rules provide that the degree of support to define the degree of support in a negative way is that there should not be opposition of more than 50% to the application filed. Next, the applicant should not be related to the importer or exporters of the alleged dumped article. Uh, the applicant should not have any relation with the exporters or the importers of the same article in India. And it should not have imported any goods, any subject good by himself during the period of injury and the period of investigation. Further, when we say about the standing, the applicant should have produced the product the product for which he is filing the anti-dumping duty application. He must have uh, he must have the production as well as the commercial sale in the domestic market for the particular product. Now, when it is a consumer goods, and in case it is not a consumer good but an item which can be used by other industry as their raw material or as an intermediate good. Now, if the same company is producing the product and not selling it commercially but transferring it to the same facilities for the further process, so that in that condition the particular product cannot be considered for the investigation, because if the particular industry is not able to or not selling that goods commercially in the market, it is not possible to determine the aspect of the injury to the particular product. So that company should have, the domestic industry should have commercial sale of that particular product so as to determine that particular injury aspects during the course of investigation. And there are many products which uh, which are manufactured by only one companies, and we can call it the sole producer. Now, such sole producers can also file an application as they fit into the definition of the domestic industry and satisfy the criteria of the standing. Regarding the product under consideration, now the in whole investigation process and uh, whole measures, the very important aspect is the product under consideration. Oh, as we know that the anti-dumping duty or any trade defense measures are related to the are specific to the product. So it becomes very essential to define what constitute the product, what is the product, how to define that product, what is the uh, what is the form, what is the grade, technology, and all such aspect need to be defined very clearly so that there is so that the product get complete protection, and so the domestic industry get the complete protection against any anti-dumping or against any unfair trade practices. So when we think about the product under consideration, there is no specific definition in the law which defines what constitutes the product, but they have defined many other contours from which we can derive what constitutes the product. The second aspect is the like product. Generally, uh, the similar product, same and the similar product are also taken together to define the product under consideration. Now, uh, all these aspects are taken together to define further the scope of product under consideration. In this scope, the detailed description of the product is given. Detailed description involves its characteristics, its physical characteristics, its chemical, technical characteristics. Then in all forms of the product, such as if in case of the, for example, in chemicals, you can have the chemicals in the powder forms, maybe in the liquid forms also of the same chemical composition. So to cover everything, all such forms are also defined in the scope of the product. The scope of product need to be defined at the time of the initiation. It becomes very important, and also a due care has to be taken while defining such product, because there is a possibility that the exporting country or exporter may change the nature or may change the some of the aspect of the product by which they can try to circumvent the anti-dumping duty that is imposed. And and there is another aspect for defining the product under consideration is that the definition should not be very broad, that undesirable effect um, we may get the undesirable effect in the sense that the domestic industry is not capable of producing a certain kind of product, and and is producer of the fixed kind of product, but the definition that it provides in the application is becomes so broad that is tried to encompass the all kind of product. So that may basically harm the domestic market itself, that they may not have the production from the domestic industry, and the subsequent imports of this product becomes expensive because of the anti-dumping duty imposed on them. There are many cases wherein the authority has recommended anti-dumping duty on a particular product and the definition of the product is not agreed or was questioned by, or the clarification was sought by the importers of the product so as to give the clarity and so as to save their product from the anti-dumping duty which is not actually for them. Now when a particular products, there are number of when the particular products is defined, it is very much possible that that particular product may have different characteristics, different nature, different forms, wherein there is no comparison, and because of that, and because of those characteristics, the comparison of because of those characteristics, the prices of these products become varies. So the proper comparison is not possible. So in order to have such comparison, proper comparison, uh, there is a method. It's called there is a method to identify such all different grades of particular product. That method is called the product control number. So for each such a different number, such a different product, different codes are considered so that the similar product can be compared with that particular product. For example, in particular, in case of let's say aluminum foil may have the different kind of thickness, may have the different thickness and the processes through which it is manufactured. So it would not be fair to have a comparison of the one thickness paper, foil of a thickness less than 5 micron to the foil of thickness of more than 80 micron. So to have a proper comparison between these products, these different grades of the same products, each grade or each characteristic or a group of characteristics are assigned, are clubbed together and assigned in a particular way so that the proper comparison and fair comparison can be done. Now, as I explained earlier, the product under consideration is a very important and it has no clear definition, but it can be defined on various aspects. The rule 2D of the AD rules also provides for the like product, so which gives the actual comparison with the product under consideration. So like article means an article which is an identical in all respect to the article under investigation which for being dumped in India, or in the absence of such an article, another article which although not alike in all respects has characteristics closely resembling to those articles are under investigation. So the main stress is given on the characteristics of the articles. The characteristics should be comparable and in terms of technical and commercial aspect also. Now there is another way to look at it, is that a particular product, if it is under investigation, can have the substitute uh, can be substituted by the other product. So the substitution is also considered in the as a part of the product under consideration. The substitution may be on the commercial ground also. Further, you can see that like article, when we compare, there is a commercial substitutability and in the manufacturing process. So these are basically particular characteristics and the certain criteria wherein we can have the understanding of the like articles, what may constitute the like article, and what should be covered under the anti-dumping duty during the investigation. So these characteristics, as you can see, the commercial substitutability and the manufacturing process. Now the usage, what is the use, what is the end user use, what is the raw materials or the properties, and even the resemblance. Now, all such aspects constitute the like product, and these like product are taken into consideration in the anti-dumping duty investigation. Further, the similarity aspect, further the physical similarity, technical substitutability, commercial substitutability, and the functional substitutability, they are also taken into consideration while defining a product. Now, when we have defined the product, which is against which the investigation must be started or initiated. Now the next aspect is very important, is regarding injury. Now, what is an injury? As we have already seen uh, in the legal provision for the initiation of any anti-dumping investigation, there is the injury is is the key element. So it is important to understand what is injury. So there are different aspects of the injury. First, can be material injury to the domestic industry. Domestic industry also can claim that there is a threat of material injury and not injury itself. Further, they can claim for the material retardation. The material retardation is a specific aspects when the industry is very much new and have just started their production, but not able to sell it in the domestic market because of dumping. So material retardation is basically a provision for those companies who are who have just initiated their business and not able to uh, sell their product commercially in a viable economic way. The material retardation in material retardation, the company may not able to establish the full injury parameters, full injury threat, but based on their estimated project report and their projection, if they are able to establish that the dumping, because of the dumping, they are not able to capture the domestic market, or they are not able to make any kind of commercial sale in the domestic market because of dumping. In that case, the material retardation is can be considered. Now, determination of such injury, it must be on the positive evidences, and it should know the objective examination of different parameters. The main parameter which can say is the volume effect. Volume effect is basically refer to the quantum, to the quantity of imported items that is being imported in India. So you can see and its impact on the market demand and the share of the domestic industry in the market. Now, if you see, there has been subsequent rise in the import, because of which the the market share of the domestic industry is gradually or slowly being reduced or getting hampered or getting going to negative side. And we can have the comparison of such comparison of prices of this imported material and the domestic market and the domestic industry's product, and then we can see the what is the impact of the volume of the imports on on the sale of the domestic market, on the sale of the product of domestic industry. Further, you can observe the impact of the prices which this import can cause to the domestic industry. Now, price effect, you can see if the domestic industry is making a sale of their of the PUC, the product under consideration, and is not able to meet its expenses or meet the cost of production because of the prices, and because the prices that it is forced to sell in the domestic market. So this parameter we can see the whether there is a impact on the price, whether there is any impact on the prices of the particular product in the domestic market. The for injury there are other main aspects where we can see the economic health of the particular domestic industry, and based on the evaluation of those economic parameter we can see whether there is any injury to the domestic industry, and what is the quantum and what the extent of the what is the extent uh, what is the extent of the injury to the domestic industry. Now, as I explained earlier, volume effect is basically the volume of imports in absolute terms. So absolute terms, in the sense, we can see there is a continuous rise in the volume of the imported material of the PUC, or there is another trend. From the trend, we can observe whether such trend can harm the domestic industry, can cause the domestic industry. So the volume effect is very important. Now, this import should be seen in the relation the total production, demand, and the consumption in the domestic market. Regarding the price effect, as I explained earlier, there is one aspect called the price undercutting. Price undercutting refers when the domestic industry, when the landed price of the imported item is less than what the price of the particular item which is sold by the domestic industry in the domestic market. If the if the landed prices are lower than the selling price of the domestic industry in the market, we can say the imports are undercutting the prices. And regarding the price suppression and deflation, from the landed prices and the sale of the domestic prices, we can see the trend over the period of investigation. If the domestic industry is not able to not able to change its prices uh, and forced to sell the prices which are injurious to it. So then we can say the prices are depressed by the imports because of the dumping. And when the domestic industry is not able to raise the prices where they should have been to recover their cost of production or recover their cost of sale, so we can say the prices are suppressed by the dumped imports. So price suppression and depression are not those major criteria to evaluate the injury, but in overall analysis, or when we have the complete analysis of the industry, those become the very important factors. Now, when we are talking about the other economic parameters of the domestic industry, there are 14 main such parameters which are focused during the course of investigation. These parameters are sales in quantity. So, sales in quantity can get affected due to the volume that is coming at dump prices. So, if there is a trend, if there is a possible trend that domestic industries, the share of the domestic industry is getting reduced in the domestic market, the sale quantity has been reduced. So we can say that domestic industry getting injured. There is injury to the domestic industry due to dump imports. Similarly, we have to see the trend in the profitability of the domestic industry, the output and the market share. What is the impact on the market share due to the imports? Then return on investments, utilization of the capacity and the productivity. Now, if there is no demand or demand of the product under consideration is reduced due to the imports, so we can say that there is a subsequent impact on its production, its reduction in the market share, and thus the fall in the profit. The cash flow, inventories, employment, wages, the growth, and ability to raise capital or investment. So all these 14 parameters are studied, are seen. What is the trend in all these 14 parameters and what is the probable cause? If the probable cause is not dumping, but there may be other factors, the internal administration or internal mechanism of the companies or the operation of the companies or other factors which are affecting the demand of the particular product and not necessarily dumping. So we cannot establish the link between the dumping and the injury. So we have to see all these parameters and all these aspects in order to analyze the impact of the dumping. It is not necessary that all these 14 parameters may show the negative growth or may show some uh, adverse changes or adverse trend. But during the investigation, domestic industry need to establish that the negative trend or the adverse effect is solely because of the dumping and not other factors. So we carry out the non-attribution analysis wherein we study the different parameters which may have caused injury to the domestic industry. Now, so far we have studied the material injury. Now, it is not necessary in many conditions. It may not be necessary or to say that there is an injury. But if the domestic industry also claim that there is a threat of material injury, there is a very much likelihood to there is a likelihood that the dumped imports may cause the injury to the domestic industry in near future. So in that aspects, they need to establish that there is a rise in imports. There is there is a rise in import, and the rate at which the import has increased, it's very much significant. And other aspect is that the exporting countries or exporter has very much free capacity or idle capacity, wherein the price attractiveness in the India or Indian market may attract or may force that exporter producer to use that idle capacity and to dump those to use that idle capacity, and such production may cause the dumping in near future to the domestic industry. Now they can have the data regarding inventories of product available with the foreign supplier. They can have the idle. They can submit the data regarding the idle capacity, wherein they could establish that it is it in near future this may cause injury to the domestic industry. In that case, we can also have the investigation initiated uh, in order to remove that threat of material injury. Now let's see. We have seen the injury, various aspects of the injury. Now, in order to have the objective analysis and to quantify the injury, we need to determine the non-injurious price. Non-injurious price, it is a fair price which enables the domestic industry to recover its cost of production and reasonable profit margin after taking into consideration all other factors of production which could have affected the company, but for which dump imports are not responsible. In the absence of any dumped or any other factors, and in normal way of operation, what is the price? What would be the price of particular product if sold at that price? So they can recover all other cost, and anything below that price may cause the injury to the domestic industry. So non-injurious price becomes one of the main parameters wherein the quantification of the injury can be done, and based on that the remedial measures can be taken to remove that particular injury. So it is the price at which the DI of the like product should be able to compete with the exporters of the foreign producers of the PUC. So it becomes the price of the, it becomes a one aspect where you can have the comparison with the prices, price of the imported product. Once we have calculated the NIP, non-injurious price, so we can calculate the calculate the injury margin. Injury margin is basically injury suffered by the domestic industry on account of the dump imports, and it is said that if that particularly that injury margin, if injury margin is addressed, injury margin is removed by imposing duty, the domestic industry can recover from the dumping. So the injury margin becomes a very important aspect, and it is basically a comparison between the non-injurious price and the landed value. Landed value is basically the price at which, it is a CIF price of the imported product, and plus the basic custom duties and the cess. So that becomes the comparable price. So NIP you can consider as a price at the X factory, and the landed value can see the price at the port. So we can have the fair comparison between two prices, and from that comparison we can have the calculation of the injury margin. Now another aspect. Now so far we have seen the aspects from the domestic industry point of view. So we have seen the what is the price of a particular product which is non-injurious to the domestic industry, and what is the landed value. Now this is one comparison. Now from the export, now we need to also see if it is really a dumping or not. So dumping, for that we need to see the what is the cost of production, what is the normal value of that particular product in the exporting country. Now there is a possibility that due to various factors, availability of raw materials, availability of technology, availability of capitals and all, the actual cost of production is lower, and the export the at the and because of the lower exported because the low cost of production, they are able to capture the markets in different countries, including India. So we need to see what is the actual cost of production in the particularly exporting countries. And from that cost of production, we need to arrive at a normal value. Now, normal value is defined as it is a comparable price in the ordinary course of trade for the like article when destined for the consumption in the exporting country or territory as determined in accordance with the rules made under this subsection 6. So normal value is basically the domestic sale price of the like article of the producer exporters in the home market of the exporting country. So it is basically that price that the exporter is selling its like article in its domestic market. Now if it is so, we have the two prices where the two markets where we can have the fair comparison, and to have that fair comparison between prices we need to determine what is the normal value, what could be that normal value of like article in the domestic market of exporting country. And this normal value it needs to be compared with the export prices of a particular product at X factory level. So now we are basically comparing the what is the normal value of a product, and at which price the exporter is exporting that particular product in the market. Now if the prices are same, if the domestic price of a particular product in its own market and the export prices are same, then we cannot say it's a dumping. If they are selling below that prices, then it is called dumping. So for to have the proper fair comparison, there are various ways to arrive at the normal value of the exporters. So the procedure is the particular exporters In the investigation, when the particular exporter responds to the investigation, they have to file a detailed report, detailed data of its sales, of its export sales, of its domestic sales, and various other transaction where we can arrive at a particular where we can have sufficient data to determine its normal value. Now there are three basic tests to examine the data submitted by the exporter, whether from the submitted data we can determine the normal value or not. Now, if the domestic sale of a particular producer, particular exporter is less than the 5%, is less than the 5% what it has exported to India, then such then data then its data of a domestic sale is not representative enough where we can rely on the data in determination of the normal value. Now, if the low volume test is passed, if the domestic sale of the particular product is more than 5% of what is exported, what is imported in India, then we need to check if these sales are, if the sales in the domestic market, what is the nature of the sales in the domestic market. So we need to see if the sales are sales in the domestic market are made in the ordinary course of trade. Now for that, ordinary course of trade means the cost of production is compared with the cost of production is compared with the transactions, the domestic transaction of the exporters made during a particular period. In this case, the particular period of investigation. Now, if the cost of production and a particular transaction is compared, and when we see the cost of production is and the particular transaction shows that the domestic sales are profitable during the particular period of investigation, and all such transactions are when compared with the cost of production, and we can observe that if the total transactions are profitable, the profitable transactions are more than 80%, then all the transactions made by the exporter during that period are considered to determine the normal value. Now, if the lost transactions made by the exporters in the domestic market for the particular for the period of investigation are more than the 20%, then only those transactions wherein we can see the profit are considered for the determination of the normal value. Now, this normal value is calculated based on all such profit transactions, and its weighted average. So that gives the basically a clear picture of normal value. What could be the what should be the price of particular product in the what is the exact selling price of a particular product in the domestic market by the particular exporters. So that gives the clear picture when we have that kind of comparison. Now, when we don't have this kind of data, or data is not provided by the exporters, or there is a particular market situation, which basically means the market situation is distorted. It is not the true market, but have the influence and the intervention or the control by the its domestic government or any other factor which may not reflect the true market condition of the particular market of the exporters, or there are very low volume of sales. So in that situation, we cannot use the criteria as explained earlier in the domestic for the determination of the normal value. For that, we need to have other options. Other options include the comparable representative appropriate third country export price and the cost of production of the said article in the country of origin, along with the reasonable profits and general administration cost. So when we don't get that kind of data, we have to rely on other practices, but it has to follow stepwise. If the exporter has submitted its data and all its details, and if those details are not complete or not sufficient, then we can move to the next option, wherein uh, the prices when it exported to the appropriate non-subject country. So at what price that particular country is selling that product in the particular market. So from that we can have the comparison. We can have the value wherein we can say that uh, wherein we can say that the domestic prices of particular product is that range. Now there is another situation where the country we can say is a non-market economy country. It means a country which is designated authority determines as not operating on the marketing principle of cost and or pricing structure, so that the sale of the merchandise in such country do not reflect the fair value of the merchandise. Now, in such market conditions, now in many investigation, the China is considered as a non-market economic country, where the prices are not reflective enough, or the Chinese market we can say it is uh, not operating on market principles. So the exporters normal value is cannot be determined from the data that they have provided, the cost of production and all. So in that case, the fair comparison is not possible. So for that purpose, we need to construct a normal value. Now, when there is no sufficient data to construct the normal value based on the data provided by the exporter, so we need to have a comparison. We need to have the comparison of the export price. So for that purpose, if if the normal value calculation is not possible from other resources, the final resort, the final option is left is to construct the normal value. Now, while for normal value construction, the various elements are have to be taken into consideration, such as DI's cost of production, then selling general and administrative cost, etc. Further, the goods sold in the domestic market of the exporting country and the amount of profit that exporter would have earned had the goods sold in the domestic market. So on this principle, the normal value for particular exporter is constructed for the comparison with the export price. Now we have seen the normal non-injurious price, then normal value, then normal constructed normal value. Now we have to see the export price. Now at what price the exporter is selling the particular product in India. Now it is basically we can see that it is ordinary in any ordinary course. It's a transaction price at which producer sells the product to the importer in the importing country. Now, generally, that is the ordinary course of transaction that happens. Uh, but in certain transactions, the sale is not direct. The sale is not direct. That is not direct. It means the sale is not from the producer to the importer in the importing country. There may be a multiple layers, multiple agents, multiple companies, or multiple subsidiaries of the same producers. So whenever the goods is transferred to the multiple layers, so at each layer the cost gets added, and there is possible that the export price which is coming in India is much elevated because of this multiple levels of transactions that happens. Another aspect is the company may have some arrangement agreement with the importers in the country. That may be a barter system or something else, or they can offering a lump sum discount, annual discount, or some sort of arrangement wherein the true export price is not possible to find out. In that case also the export price need to be constructed from the what is best data available regarding the transaction that is happening in that country for the particular product. Now, as we have seen, what is the injury margin? Injury margin was basically regarding the injury causing injury caused to the domestic industry by the dumping, and which was calculated based on the non-injurious price and the landed value. Now, similarly, the dumping margin is basically calculated by comparing the normal value or constructed normal value and the net export price. The determination of dumping margin is critical for dumping and injury assessment. Dumping margin is used in the applications of lesser duty rule for the quantification of duty. For the de minimis dumping margin will lead to the termination of the investigation against the concerned country. Also, the recommendation for non-imposition of the duty against the concerned producer. So, dumping margin has very much significance in the whole process of the investigation and also in determining the quantum of duties that need to be imposed in as a trade measures, as a trade remedial measures. Now, India follows the rule. India follows the lesser duty rule, which means that when we compare the dumping margin and the injury margin, out of which is the lowest, if it is the injury is lowest or the dumping margin is lowest, whatever is lower of these two, that will be taken into consideration while calculation and the imposition of the anti-dumping duty. So that's why dumping margin is plays very crucial role in the whole investigation process. And that's why we have seen this aspect in details, the calculation of the normal value, how this normal value is determined, and the normal export price. So from this equation, we can see that it is basically the comparison of the at what price that particular exporter is selling that product under consideration in its domestic market, and at what price he is exporting to the importing country. So if this dumping margin is negative, it reflects that it shows that the the particular producer of like article, they are not dumping that particular product into the importing country. It is a comparison between the actual cost of production and its price in the domestic market and the export price. So if this margin is negative, if this equation establishes that is a dumping or not. If it is not dumping, and if it is not dumping, then then it leads to the termination of investigation. It itself states that there is no dumping of a particular product from particular exporter. Now this dumping margin is also calculated on each exporter wise. As I say, the very first slide, the dumping is a decision is a is a exporter specific decision of it is an business decision of a particular exporter. So the dumping margin is also need to calculate it for each exporter which are participating in the investigation process. Now, if the dumping margin is negative for the particular exporters, that exporter is not given any duty. It is given the nil duty. So it shows that the particular exporter is not exporting that particular product at dump prices. So as we have seen the calculation, how the calculation of injury margin and the how during the investigation how the injury margin and dumping margins are calculated, and based on whichever is lower, the duty is imposed to remove that injury to the domestic industry. Now, once this duty is imposed, it is imposed for the particular period, which can goes maximum to the 5 years. Now, once the duty is imposed, there are other mechanisms which can call for the review of such imposition. Now, exporters or the have the now after imposition, after completing investigation, the authority publishes finding and recommends the duty. Now, the duties are this recommendation are considered by the Department of Revenue, and accordingly, the duties are notified in Gazette. And duties are imposed from the date of notification of such duties. Now, if there is any grievance or any different view of any participating or interested or affected parties because of imposition of duty, so uh, they can approach to the tribunal, custom service, custom excise and service tax tribunal. It's called the CSTAT, uh, which is the body, which is the tribunal, which can go into the merit of the case and decides regarding the investigation process. There is another mechanism or another way um, sorry. So once that process is over, there is another process for the review of these investigations. Now these reviews, there are three kinds of reviews that can happen to the investigation after finalization of the investigation. So these reviews are the sunset reviews, midterm reviews, and the new super review. Now in sunset review, the domestic industry can again approach to the authority stating that duties are getting expired on a particular after a particular period. So sorry, the during the investigation the duties are imposed for a particular fixed period. Was a fixed period. So the domestic industry can again approach to the authority saying that the duty is due to expired on so and so date. So they can again file an application for the sunset review that if duty gets expired, so there is a likelihood of the dumping. If the duty is removed, the domestic industry can have an injury because of dumping. So they can seek a review, and this review is known as sunset review. They can file an application where they can provide the evidences that in the case of cessation of such a duty, imposed duty, the domestic industry is like to suffer injury. So again, they have to establish the link between the dumping and the injury. Now the authority also can initiate suo motu cases, undertake the sunset review. In sunset review, the main focus is on the likelihood wherein if the duty is ceased to exist, what could be the likely impact on the domestic industry and its injury, and what could be the injury to the domestic industry. Now, in many cases, in many possibilities, since the duty is in force for say a period of 5 years, the economic parameters of the domestic industry gets positive or shows the positive trend. So it becomes difficult for the domestic industry to establish to reflect the exact injury uh, due to the dump product in that duty period. There is other possibility that due to the imposition of duty, the volume of dumped product has decreased. So very difficult to see the volume effect or the price effect. So and the economic parameters may turns into shows the positive trend. So in that case, the stress is given on the likelihood aspects of this case. So likelihood basically stress on the few facts such as the excess capacity of the producer and its trend, its export orientation, then the price attractiveness. If the prices in the domestic market are quite the prices for the like product under consideration is attractive for the exporters, So it is very likely that once the duty period is over, when the anti-dumping duty cease to exist, there is a possibility that this excess capacity or the excess capacity and the price attractiveness may attract may attract products into India, and again it will go back to the situation of dumping, and again which may lead to the injury to the domestic industry. So in sunset review, all these aspects uh, need to be studied and analyzed, and accordingly in sunset reviews also the injury analysis and the dumping analysis is undertaken, has to be seen what are the prices, and it need not be the uh, even if it is at times even if the dumping margin is negative, injury margin is negative, and there is a likelihood based on the facts as I explained, authority may suggest for the continuation of the duty. So that will give the further protection from any unfair trade practices to the domestic industry. Now we see the midterm review. Midterm review is undertaken by the authority on suo motu basis or based on the application from the exporters or the industry, whoever who wants to uh, seek a review because of the changed market condition, because of the change in technology, because of the change in the nature of product or the demand in the product or advancement in the product. So typically midterm review applications, the interested party can file the application after the 1 year of the imposition of the duty, that is 12 months, and, between 12 months to the 42 months of the duty period. Now it can such application may can call for the overall review of the anti-dumping duty or particular aspects such as product. If the after conducting a midterm review, if there are changes and there are and these changes are established through the positive evidences, then there is a possibility in the change in the duties that was earlier imposed in the original findings. There is also a possibility of a scenario wherein exporter uh, particular exporter was not exporting goods in India at the time of the anti-dumping investigation. So he can ask for the new shipper review. Now, if he was not a part of the original anti-dumping investigation, so there is a possibility that he may have to pay anti-dumping. He may have to pay uh, anti-dumping duty, but he feels that he is not dumping the product in the importing country, and and because of that, he needs a different review of his prices and his exporting prices, so that a particular duty is calculated for that particular exporters. So he can claim that uh, uh, he can claim for the different dumping margin and so the anti-dumping duty. So This was all about the anti-dumping duty investigations, its various elements. What are the investigation processes? What are the key elements in the investigation process, and how it is calculated? We'll quickly just have an overlook about the countervailing duties, countervailing duty as a trade remedial measures. Now, in countervailing duties also, there are three essential elements. Likewise, in anti-dumping duty, there was anti-dumping, injury, and the causal link. So, in countervailing measures, also there are three essential elements which need to be established by the applicant. These elements are subsidy and injury caused by the subsidy and the causal link between the injury and the subsidy. Now, WTO in its agreement on subsidy and countervailing measures defines three essential elements in any schemes or programs of the government. Now, if these three elements are not there, then it is not considered as the subsidy. Now, these elements are the financial contribution. First element is financial contribution. Second is government or any public body, and the benefit. Now, the presence of three elements only constitute claim that the particular scheme or particular program run by the government is a subsidy program. The financial contribution, it can be a direct transfer of fund through grants, through direct loan, the possibility, the promises of loan, guarantee of loan, which actually a potential direct transfer funds. It may be any government scheme wherein the government there is element of tax which government do not collect, or there is a element of foregone revenue foregone, or any other government support and scheme which has the financial implications and the financial benefit to the particular sector or the industry. Now, government, the next element was government or public bodies. Now, the government it includes the federal, regional, or any municipal government. So, any financial contribution given by any of these government bodies can be considered as a subsidy. Now, it also includes the public sector, the enterprises where the government has the maximum shareholding, or also any direction given by the government to the private body. A benefit basically a situation where a particular industry or enterprises is put on the advantageous position than others because of the schemes or programs which has the nature of financial support. So that constitutes the benefit. So there are other subsidies which are prohibited directly under WTO because because these subsidies are regarded as a trade distortive subsidy. These are basically export subsidies. So anything which is given, any financial contribution by the government to boost its export is known as export subsidies. The import subsidies basically relates to the any incentive by the government to because by which the domestic goods get the preference over the imported products. There are certain agriculture subsidies which are described in agreement on agriculture. Now, these prohibited subsidies can be directly challenged WTO. Now, there is no requirement of proof showing that there is injury because of this prohibitory the subsidies. And the importing countries can start investigations and put countervailing duties on such prohibited subsidies directly. Finally, we can see the third aspect of the uh, trade defense measures is as a safeguard measures. Now, safeguards are basically are not unfair trade practices. Safeguard measures are not uh, against the unfair trade practices. Basically, there is a condition. There may be a condition wherein temporary measures are required to slow imports, to enable the particular industry to adjust to the heightened competition from the foreign suppliers. Now, in safeguard measures, the few aspects need to be analyzed, such as need to see if there is any surge in the import. Now, this surge in the import should be sudden and steep. It should not for the short. That means in short duration there must be a sudden rise in import, and it should be very reflective from the import data. And this sudden rise should cause the injury to the domestic industry, and this sudden rise in the import data or volume of import data must be seen overall in comparison with the domestic production and the market share of particular industry. Now, if there is a sharp rise and this causes the serious injury to the domestic industry, then the authority can undertake an investigation and impose safeguard measures. Now, you can see the essential elements here also is the increased imports, the serious injury or threat of serious injury, and the causal link. Now, finally we can the next part of the presentation we can see the trade defense and the cases against India. Now, what is the mechanism that is available in India to fight cases uh, to fight cases which are initiated by the other countries against India? Now, the CVD investigations and CVD cases against India. So there are multiple stages in the of the CVD investigations. Uh, the CVD investigation is a stage at the first stage is a pre-initiation stage. Now, CVD countervailing countervailing duty investigation is basically sorry. At a pre-initiation stage, there is a bilateral discussion between the governments of two countries. Now, suppose EU or US has initiated case countervailing duty case against India. Then, at at a pre-initiation stage, there is a consultation between the two governments, wherein the initial aspects or uh, initial schemes are questions, and accordingly the information is gathered. At many times, at the initial stage itself, the investigation gets terminated. So there is a participation from the government side directly in this in CVD investigations. Now, if at the pre-initiation stage, the government, if the pre-initiation is clear and the authority of other country thinks the case is fit for the further investigation, then they initiate investigation and inform all interested parties and send questionnaires to respond accordingly. Similarly, the question is sent to the Government of India also, wherein Government of India submits the information regarding its schemes and programs. After first submission, if the investigation authority requires further information, they can they can ask for further information by issuing supplementary questionnaire. It goes through the process of the preliminary findings, then verification, filing of case brief, rebuttal brief. There is a public hearing, final findings, and the review. So, at various stage, the government of India participate directly in the countervailing duty investigations. Examine the issue, examine the schemes, and submit the information about its schemes, and establish and give and establish that these schemes are not a part of subsidy, and these schemes are not countervailable subsidies. Now, in anti-dumping cases against India, since this anti-dumping investigation is very specific to the particular exporters, government has very limited role during the course of investigations. But government can assist and is assisting the interested exporters who are participating in the investigation if there are any legal issues, or uh, it is found that there is a violation of the WTO rules during the investigation, and investigation is not carried out as per the WTO rules, then the government of India can represent and request for the review of such cases. Now, in few cases, the government of the question is also received issued for the government, wherein the particular information is asked. Now, if there are any issues, the government of India supports the participating exporters, and if the exporters uh, if the exporter says that they have not followed the WTO rules properly and they have given the duty which is not appropriate, they can approach the government and the issue can be taken up to the WTO for the WTO dispute resolution. Similarly, in safeguard cases also, the government of India examines the initiation notification, then the interested parties are informed, the EPCs are informed, and it is encouraged, all are encouraged to have their participation in the process of investigations. And Government of India also attend the public hearing uh, uh, wherein the issue and concerns of the Government of India is highlighted and submitted. And overall, it is seen that if these investigations uh, are done as per the WTO rules. So these are the mechanism that is available in India and been practiced against the trade remedy against the unfair trade practices. Thank you very much for your patience listening. And if any question, please.
All the participants can write a question in chat box or they can email us.
Uh, are there any questions? Actually, presentation was quite long, and uh, there are many aspects which need to be explained in detail. I think I'm not.
So I'll just forward the query to you if
Huh.
there is any. So we can wind up for today.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.